Crimson Desert is one of those extremely ambitious games that seem to come around every few years or so. After 3 or 4 years of games, there's always this one project that's revealed that looks just way too good to be true. For example, with the open world survival game The Day Before, which looked too good and turned out to be a massive failure. Crimson Desert is one of those games, only this time around, the developers are actively releasing unedited gameplay, in-depth details, and many people have already played it, calling it a monster of a game. There seems to be so much to it, and the new details we've been given just makes it even more excited. This game is increasingly bank-framed around the scale and density of its world, and that's the first thing that needs to be addressed, because a lot of people immediately tune out when they hear comparisons to Red Dead Redemption 2 or Skyrim by its developers. Bigger does not automatically mean better, and Pearl Abyss seems aware of that. What they've been emphasizing lately isn't just size, but what actually exists inside that space. The game's world is said to be much bigger than Red Dead 2 and Skyrim, but they seem to have filled with many activities, cities, castles, villages, different biomes, and more. Like the video if you're excited, and let's get into it right away. The continent of Pywell is massive, reportedly larger than several of the genre's benchmarks, but the focus appears to be on how populated and active that world is. It's said to not be empty terrain stretched for marketing purposes. The world is described as being packed with castles, fortified cities, small villages, remote outposts, ruins, monster dens, and unexplored regions that feel deliberately placed rather than procedurally scattered. Different regions aren't just visually distinct either, they're structured around different threats, wildlife, factions, and environmental conditions. Biomes play a significant role in shaping gameplay. Snow-covered mountains affect traversal and stamina. Dense forests limit visibility and change how encounters unfold. Open plains allow mounted combat and large-scale fights, while coastal regions introduce naval elements, underwater exploration, and aquatic threats. The world is designed so that simply moving from one region to another meaningfully changes how you approach the game. Wildlife and creatures are not background decoration. Players can hunt animals for resources, encounter dangerous predators organically, and even tame certain creatures. This includes traditional mounts, rare beasts, and even dragons, not as scripted moments, but as part of the world's ecosystem. Taming isn't presented as a gimmick, but as a system tied to exploration, progression, and traversal, with different creatures offering different advantages and limitations. Monsters are distributed throughout the world rather than confined to specific combat zones. Some roam freely, others guard locations, and some appear only under certain conditions. Castles and large structures often function as the high-risk areas, with layered defenses, elite enemies, and environmental hazards. Cities and villages, on the other hand, act as social hubs, quest centers, and places where the political state of the world becomes visible. Once you move past the sheer scope of the world, the focus shifts to how players actually interact with it. Traversal is deliberately physical. Climbing isn't restricted to specific handholds. It's physics-driven, allowing players to scale cliffs, walls, towers, and ruins as long as stamina and positioning allow. Gliding adds vertical freedom, enabling players to approach areas from unexpected angles or escape dangerous situations. Swimming and underwater exploration open up hidden paths, submerged locations, and environmental storytelling beneath the surface. Living within the world is another recurring theme. Housing is functional rather than cosmetic. Players can own homes, store gear, cook meals, and rest, with these actions feeding directly into survival and preparation systems. Cooking affects stamina recovery, combat readiness, and exploration endurance. These mechanics aren't forced, but they reward players who engage with them, especially during longer expeditions. Combat remains grounded in physicality and environmental interaction. Enemies react dynamically to hits, terrain, and momentum. Positioning matters, elevation matters. Objects can be destroyed or used during fights. Mounted combat is fully integrated, allowing encounters to transition fluidly between horseback and on-foot combat without artificial breaks. Boss encounters often span large areas where terrain and environmental destruction shape how battles unfold rather than confining players to traditional arenas. NPC behavior is designed to reinforce the idea of a living world. Characters follow daily routines, respond to weather changes, and react to danger dynamically. Towns feel active rather than static, with crowds moving purposefully and responding to events. Conflict in the world has visible consequences, damage doesn't simply reset, and locations reflect what's happened there. The narrative structure centers on Cliff, a a defined protagonist with personal stakes tied directly to the state of the world. The story focuses on fractured alliances, political instability, and regional power struggles rather than a simple good versus evil arc. Player choice isn't framed through heavy dialogue trees, but through action, alignment, and consequence. Who you help, who you ignore, and how you engage with the world around you. Side content is integrated into the world rather than existing as isolated activities. Hunting, trading, faction work, exploration, and combat contracts feed into reputation systems, regional stability, and resource availability. These activities feel less like optional distractions and more like parts of a broader ecosystem that reacts to player involvement. Technically, Crimson Desert continues to lean heavily into simulation systems. Weather affects visibility, traversal, and combat. Fog alters detection and ambush dynamics. Wind influences gliding and ranged combat. Fire spreads naturally, water reacts to movement, and environmental physics are consistently applied across the world. These systems are not just visual flourishes, they directly influence gameplay outcomes. What's notable is that Crimson Desert doesn't appear to hinge on a single standout mechanic. Instead, it's attempting to layer multiple interconnected systems: world scale, traversal, combat, survival, NPC behavior, and environmental simulation into a cohesive experience. That approach is ambitious, and ambition always comes with risk. There are no clear signs that this is being shaped around live service design, multiplayer first priorities, or monetization driven systems. Everything points toward a traditional single player experience, albeit one with modern technical ambitions and a heavier simulation focus than most open world RPGs currently on the market. None of this guarantees success. Large scale systems are notoriously difficult to balance and polish, and games that aim this high often struggle with consistency over long playtimes. But what's becoming increasingly clear is that Crimson Desert isn't playing it safe. It's not chasing trends or copying a single template. At this stage, the most reasonable position is cautious attention. There is enough substance in the design choices to justify serious interest, but also enough complexity to warrant skepticism until the final experience is in players' hands. Crimson Desert is shaping up to be one of the more unusual and potentially influential open-world RPG projects on the horizon. Whether it ultimately delivers or not, it's a game that deserves to be watched closely, not because of bold promises, but because of the direction it's choosing to take. What ultimately makes Crimson Desert worth paying attention to isn't just how much it's attempting, but how intentionally those systems appear to be designed to overlap. The world isn't presented as a backdrop for quests, it's structured as something that pushes back on the player. Traversal systems, survival mechanics, and combat are all tied to environmental conditions, meaning preparation actually matters. Heading into a mountainous region without the right supplies or mounts isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous. That alone separates it from a lot of modern open-world RPGs that remove friction in the name of accessibility. There's also a notable absence of handholding in how the game is being described. Objectives aren't always spelled out. Exploration seems to be driven by curiosity and risk rather than map icons and checklists. The sheer variety of activities feeding into progression is another reason for cautious optimism. Combat, exploration, crafting, hunting, and social interaction don't exist in silos. They inform each other. Resources gathered through hunting and exploration feed directly into survival and preparation. Political shifts affect where quests appear and how NPCs react. Environmental destruction and large-scale battles leave visible marks on the world rather than resetting once the player leaves an area. Another point worth watching is how Crimson Desert treats time and consequence. Systems like weather cycles, NPC routines, and regional instability imply a world that moves forward whether the player intervenes or not. If that's executed properly, it could create a sense of tension and urgency that most open-world RPGs lack, where the world often feels frozen until the player arrives. Like the video now and stay tuned for more on this game soon.